It is the 7th of July, 2015. This is the audio podcast, episode show 155, Synth Like Magic.
Episode show. Hello, I'm Samuel Freeman. I'm back. That's Scott Hewitt, who's being awesome, and we also have the equally awesome Adam Yanch.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Keyboard view for me today. Guess the keyboard. Of course, you can go to the audio podcast website to get the notes for today's show. That's the audiopodcast.co.uk/show/155, and those are the notes that we use. And we'll do you can contact us blah at the end of the show.
Yep, so there is news and there's Plunder, and there's lots of news because of the kind of break-in transmission sort of thing that happened there.
It's the summer, isn't it?
It is the summer, indeed.
Our regular users would have been like, yeah, they'll be back some point. And we are, and we're probably saying we'll be back next week and probably won't be, so it's all good.
At one stage, I received a message from Scott Hewitt personally saying, just checking you're still alive, not had a response from you via email.
That was not in relationship purely to the audio podcast. That was a genuine, I haven't heard, Sam hasn't replied to an email for almost 2 weeks. That's unusual.
Yeah, I went mostly off-grid for a while there, but...
That's fine, that's fine.
All good.
Well, let's plow into the news, as they say. Some of the news becomes tenuously news as the time goes on, but we'll get there. Let's take an unusual starting point here, though. ProTools, a new ProTools release, ProTools version 12.1.
Yes, indeed, and this will be a free upgrade for those people who have the new flexible licensing thing.
Why is this an unusual place to start? We talk about Pro Tools all the time.
I don't know. It's not exactly the big story. I don't know. Well, maybe it is. I don't know.
No, you're probably right. I think there are probably bigger fish in this week's show. But yes, Pro Tools 12.1, and it's a 0.1 upgrade, and yet it's it seems like it might be quite significant. Now, I had a look at the page that's linked in the audio podcast notes, and I spotted that the Pro Tools mixer has some extra little controls for sends and whatnot. Is that a 12.1 thing, or is that a 12 thing?
It's a 12 thing, but with more kind of completed support.
Aha, excellent. And what else is 12.1 significant for?
There's increased track counts, solo tracks with PFL and FL switches onto them as well. A couple of new plugin options. You see, I wasn't convinced by this as a big feature, actually, because it seems to be a big deal about the fact that they've rolled out a minor version point change, and if you happen to be paying their Sam, you phrased it incredibly positively. That was really great. Flexible licensing, did you call it?
Yeah, that's their words, but yeah.
Yeah, yes. I like to refer to it as the never stop paying model. But regardless of which versions of those models you like it, this just struck me as the kind of update that should always have been free, and is free in this case.
Yay.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what it is. Anyway, it's available. If you're a Pro Tools user, then you're probably going to switch up to it. I haven't seen anything which is like, don't do this. So that's kind of cool. I'm saying, let's face it, that's a good achievement for Avid. They've rolled out a Pro Tools update, and the internet isn't full of this broke everything. So there we go. That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah, the top of the page that's linked from the show notes, it says was it 3 months ago, blah, 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 suggesting that they are... I mean, I don't think it's always been the case that they've had a quarterly release cycle. Maybe they're aiming for that now.
Yeah, I think that is a new thing that they're pushing for. I think, to be honest, Avid are doing a big thing of trying to be a little bit more customer friendly and a little bit more kind of transparent and approachable about what's going on with things. I think this is a good example of them actually kind of like taking that to heart in a sensible sort of way. Cool. Well, you know what? If you're a day-to-day Pro Tools user, then you probably don't have time to update today. But you know what I mean? I think this is probably it's a good update. There'll be a whole load of random fixes that'll just help it to do things it should always have done, and that's always nice, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, The next news item is indeed a Kickstarter, but it's not a Kickstarter corner, just because I don't think we've done Kickstarter corner for a while. It is the LightLead, which is the world's first analog optical audio cable. That sounds very weird. So, I mean, what is this thing?
I requested an interview. I haven't heard back yet, so perhaps we will do along the lines. The problem is, the problem with this whole thing is, if I was to say to you it's an optical cable and it's designed for guitars, then in my mind what it is immediately is a cable where you plug it, you come out of your guitar, switch to digital, switch to digital and optical, and then you can fire that, have that cable as long as you want, and it either works perfectly or it doesn't work at all, and that's what you get to. And to be honest, I actually kind of understand why that could be really useful. It was, on Sunday I was dealing with a guitar for some cable and had some problems there, and that would have been, you know what I mean, we had some kind of hum interference that was coming down the cables, and, a digital guitar cable would have fixed that, getting it to the DI box at least. But that isn't what this is, I don't think, because it says it isn't digital in any way.
But it's not what it is, but it may well solve the problem in the same way. So they're not going into much detail in the description of how it works. They say that they're using patented optical or analog technology. My guess is that the unit that you plug into your guitar, to use that as the example, it takes some AAA batteries to power it, and then that acts as a transducer between the electrical signal coming in and probably a continuous variation in the intensity of the light. So rather than a digital optical cable is just flashing the light on and off, essentially, at least that's my understanding of it. With this, you've got a continuous variation. So in that sense, it's analog. And at the other end, you've got a light receiver that is going to be acting as a transducer between the changes of light intensity back into an analog electrical signal. That's my guess.
So that means you need, this is a complete cable, I suppose, so it has a converter at each end, obviously. And from the thing the problem that Scott was having the other day, this would fix that, because you're converting from a magnetic or electric signal to an optical signal. So that would have solved your problem, Scott, even though it doesn't say it's digital.
Because you've not got 3 meters of copper or whatever down the middle to pick up interference.
Yeah.
And your source, the things at either end of the cable are electronically isolated from each other. There's no electrons passing between the two.
Yeah. Hey, you guys seem a bit more impressed by this idea than I was, actually.
I'm not necessarily impressed. I mean, I kind of get it, but I think the two problems I have, the first is that you need batteries for it, and that's going to be a thing that will fail at the worst moment in time. It says 18-hour life on 2 AAA batteries, so that's not great. And also, it's fairly expensive. So looking at the pledges and the things you can get, the introductory dealer pack 1. Oh no, wait. I'm still kind of halfway down the page and looking at the wrong thing. So maybe it's not that expensive. I'm just gonna look at this, guys. So just keep on talking.
Well, and let's face it, something that requires 2 batteries and is 18 hours, so you obviously, you can imagine you're going to be chewing your way through batteries with that kind of product on it, and a whole lot. And I know it kind of feels like you probably get a pair, you probably can just have a pair of batteries and recharge them every day, can't you? It's essentially what you could probably, it's probably how you'd have to sort of handle it. But I'm still fearful that it would obviously break on the exact minute that you want it to go as well. But also, isn't the other thing like, I find I break guitar cables all the time, because they just, you kind of do stupid things with your guitar every now and again while playing it, and every now and again you just close a car door on it, and
or
like a fire exit on it
during the show.
Well, not during a show, but just in general. I'm just thinking it's
Well, yeah, and the optical cables. It depends, I suppose, how the optical cable is made up. But they, I think there's a feeling that optical cables are a little bit less strong, a bit more fragile than your typical copper type cable. Now, okay, so the cheapest LightLead reward, where you actually get a LightLead, is £99, and that's for that's a limited edition version of LightLead that is 3 meters long. So that's quite a lot of money for a cable that you probably already have and that you could buy 10 of for the same price. So I think you really need a good reason to have one of these.
So if you're living next to a power substation with a high voltage mast overhead, and you've been having lots of problems recording guitar, this could be a great product for you. Is what we're saying.
Be worth it. I mean, it's cheaper than moving house, I suppose. So
there we go.
I mean, it's good in that.
Awesome.
Sorry, that's such a good tagline. Optical analog tables. It's cheaper than moving house. The Kickstarter's been active for almost a year, I think. I can't remember the exact date that I saw as the starting thing, and it's got 53 days to go, and it has 2% of its target. So this is a product which has been, developed and patented, and they were just looking for money for production tooling, manufacturing, distribution. I don't think that's going to happen via this Kickstarter somehow. Yeah. But in the future, you may well see these come to market via other means. You never know.
I didn't know you could have a Kickstarter run for so long. It's a bit like having a really long auction on eBay. It doesn't really work. You need to pick the right, Is that true? You can have a 1 year Kickstarter.
I don't know. Maybe I've misread something today. I'm sure I read something that had 2014 on it, but it might have been a typo.
Yeah, I don't think it was that long.
There's no way on the Kickstarter page. It doesn't tell you how long it's been active, does it? It just says when it ends.
I thought they used to. Kickstarter pages used to do that. Anyway, so if you're interested in this optical cable that's basically for your guitar, you can head to the audio podcast notes for this week and then go to the link to the LightLead Kickstarter.
Cool. All right then. In which case, let's move on for our news. Further on, and we find ourselves with maybe the story that our listeners might have expected us to have really majored on this week, which is that Apple Music turned up.
Yes.
There we go.
And on to more news. Ableton released Live 9.2 today. Not today, but no. I mean, Apple Music. It's all kind of happened while we've been offline, really, hasn't it? Apple Music, and also we might as well talk about the Taylor Swift thing now. That's 2 news stories down the list, but we might as well talk about it in this as well.
Indeed so. So for those who, there's a new version of iOS that rolled out. When you install the iOS update, you get Apple Music there by default. It comes with a 3-month free trial, which you can only have if you have an iTunes account with a valid payment method attached to it, at which point you're subscribed in already. So we can be fairly certain that in 4 months' time, Apple are going to have a very good month when they collect,
Everyone who's forgotten to cancel's payment. Yep.
When they collect, 20 million single-month payments, it's probably going to work out quite well for them for 1 month. And that's what it is. Now, I think the first thing we should acknowledge is that for a cloud-based service, this one actually works. Good work, Apple. First time ever.
I see. For an Apple cloud-based service, this one actually works.
Yeah, this one does work. It didn't crash. Didn't break, and it kind of worked. So
well, maybe that's what they were buying a working platform from Beats rather than
building one. Yes,
building one themselves rather than buying Beats for their headphones, which obviously we all know that that's not why that Apple bought Beats. But I mean, if they've got something that works and is a cloud-based thing, well, that's good for Apple. So there was this whole kerfuffle with this 3-month trial that they said, oh no, we're not going to pay. It was at the independent record labels. We're not going to pay them for 3 months.
No, they weren't going to pay anybody at all for 3 months. It didn't matter whether you were independent or major. They were just going to give away your music for free. and not pay you for 3 months.
The problem, I mean, there's a wider storyline which I'll come on to, which it's storyline. I mean, it's something that I think anyway. It's maybe my opinion, but it's at first look, you look at Apple and you're like, you've got to be joking. Apple have billions of dollars in cash, billions of dollars. So they absolutely don't need that, and it was a complete joke. And then, of course, Taylor Swift came in and voiced her opposition to the whole thing, said, I'm not going to put my new album onto Apple Music because of this. And then all of a sudden, Apple, about face really quickly, and we're like, actually, you know what? We are going to pay. We are going to.
It's very theatrical, isn't it?
And then I'm like, okay, so I think maybe Taylor Swift and Apple have secretly got together and orchestrated this whole media thing. So Apple Music gets a lot of press, Taylor Swift gets a lot of press. Apple make it look like they're being generous, where Spotify is kind of painted as a villain, for not paying musicians enough, and now Apple weren't going to pay musicians for 3 months, and now are going to pay them. So it's all kind of. I think there's been a bit of shenanigans kind of organised behind the thing. That's my personal opinion, not the opinion of the audio podcast. What do you guys think?
I think, especially the way you tell it, I wouldn't go as far as to speculate that Apple and Taylor Swift were actually planning this throughout, but I think that Apple probably, as their marketing thing, could have predicted that someone will kick up a fuss if we offer to not pay anybody, and then after the about turn. Seems pretty orchestrated on that level, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Scott?
Yeah, I have to agree. I remember reading it thinking I remember thinking the only reason they're saying they're not going to pay anybody for the first 3 months is purely as a negotiating tactic. So I do kind of wonder what other piece of horrificness is included inside the contract that that nobody's spotted or hasn't paid full attention to yet. You can imagine that you're reading it, it's like, oh, they're not going to pay us for 3 months? Oh, that's a problem. And that's like the point you stop reading, isn't it? It's like, we got to deal with that problem. And there's probably, 100 pages left to go, which are,
No, and, Scott, come on. I don't think... The musicians themselves are not going to be reading that contract page by page. It will be their legal teams. And obviously... Taylor Swift is going to have enough money to have a proper legal team, so they're going to look through the whole thing. I don't really quite buy that line of thought.
Oh no, but more what I mean is it's the line that you've definitely got to get sorted out, which means that there probably are lots of other little lines that were hidden away in the back of it, which maybe are kind of problems. And we're starting to see a couple of those ones. There's been a few kind of bits mentioned about it, but inside this iTunes inside this kind of update to supporting the streaming music service, we've seen things like home sharing for audio is now disappeared. We're going to get that. And also the other thing they've done is change the way that the Apple Music Match, or is it Apple Match Music?
iTunes Match?
iTunes Match, there we go. You just got to guess your way it works as well. So now with iTunes Match, when you upload something into your streaming service, it goes up there, you can listen to it, and when you download it out of iTunes Match again, it comes down as a DRM'd version, even if the one you uploaded was a non-DRM'd version.
Oh, really?
So that's now a way of taking your non-DRM music and reapplying DRM to it.
That's really cheeky, because Apple were flying the flag for being like, oh no, we've got rid of DRM on all of our downloads, and now they're secretly putting it back up again. That's pretty dodgy. That strikes me as the kind of thing that you have in this contract, which will have been completely overwhelmed from a publicity and from a user awareness point of view, based purely on we weren't going to pay anybody for 3 months. The record labels, though, would want DRM. So I know they would, yes. So they're happy about that. I see what you mean. It's like, okay, yeah. They've covered over those other things that the record labels wouldn't want to talk about either. Now, I read the Ars Technica kind of review. It's kind of a review of the Apple Music experience, and they were like, meh. It seemed kind of like their matching service, the way that that you basically put in music to decide what it should, so it knows what to give you, is really generic. Like, you can't just type in artists that you like and it will figure out from there. You have to go, okay, pop music, this particular kind of pop music, this particular kind of thing, and build it that way, which is for some people that's fine, but for other people that's a really weird way of doing things. And also the iTunes Match had a limit on the number of tracks that you could upload, and it would actually completely ruin the database if you had too many tracks, something like that.
Yeah.
But it's out there, and I think it's probably best to give it like 6 months and see where people are with it.
Well, if you're an iOS user, it makes if you got an iPad or an iPhone or something like that, it's really simple, isn't it? You could try this for 3 months. So why would you not? And
then just put in your Google Calendar that you need to cancel the thing at the end. Now, the one good thing about the new iOS app for that allows the music app to connect up to the streaming service is that actually the iPad and the iPhone apps have been revamped, and they're so much better.
Yep.
Or they have potential, shall we say. Now, you can actually playlist now. You can do a queue, like an on-the-go playlist, on both apps. The iPad's app has been redesigned, so it looks much better and uses space much better. But I was having trouble. I was trying to load several albums to play on the queue, and you got a certain number in, and then it would the whole thing would crash. So they've still got a bit of work to do, but there's another little benefit to this whole streaming shenanigans.
Awesome stuff. Well, I think you guys know nothing of it, but I was going to propose that we'll record a couple of summer specials, and I'm certain one of our summer specials is streaming the future of music. But for now, let's leave our discussion of the streaming services behind as our time passes on. And how about we have an Ableton release as well. Ableton have released live version 9.2.
Rick, before we move on to that, can I jump back and apologise for I've got no idea where I misread the thing from, and that Kickstarter for the Light thing has only been active for a week, and I don't know where I got the 2014 from.
It's just gone crazy. There you go. Live version 9.2. The big thing from my point of view is it's Max 7.
Well, yes.
Max for Live. That's
so
cool.
Max for Live version 7 is compatible. That's good, and is also latency compensation. I guess that's in plugins.
It's plugins, particularly Max for Live plugins. Actually, there's been a little bit of latency when you move into Max for Live and come back out of Max for Live, but that's been sorted out as well.
Cool.
That's kind of cool.
So that's a good update, and Live updates automatically. Or you can set it to update automatically, as far as I understand. So you don't even have to do anything apart from leave Ableton Live open for a bit, and it will download it and upload it, install it.
That's true.
And another update is a DAW that we never talk about.
Oh.
I can't remember the last time we spoke about GarageBand, but its own. But update to GarageBand.
Yeah. There you go.
Unfortunately, the notes are written in the past, so Apple are expected to release a GarageBand update on the 30th of June.
That's because that was written on the 20th of June. You see. If you follow you see, sometimes the audio podcast website is right on it. And we're in front of everything, and other times we're quite retrospectively, just kind of flip-flops, depending on how busy I am.
Yeah.
Let me see.
So did they release a GarageBand update?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. What's in the update?
As described. There you go.
As described.
Yeah. You jump through the Ableton story, and there's one really significant part to the Ableton story, which is that there is Windows XP, Vista, 10.5 and 10.6 are all dropped.
Which makes sense with the added support for Max MSPs, well, Max for Live 7, because
Yeah.
that requires 10.7 or higher. So yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we should be moving away from these ancient operating systems, especially Windows XP. XP should be in the garbage bin by now, completely.
Yeah.
So many. What about all those computers out there that still work, but the hardware's too, there's not enough RAM, there's not enough
Install
speed.
Linux.
Install Linux. Yeah, fair enough.
Install a modern, secure operating system.
Install a modern, secure operating system.
The problem is that
10.10 isn't that though.
Well, 10.10 is more secure than Windows XP. The problem is XP is now not supported by Microsoft, unless you're willing to pay thousands of dollars.
Oh no, I think so. I would balance that the XP drop is obviously, as people know, I'm not a Windows fan in any way whatsoever, and there is no good reason to be running XP because XP was not a good Windows operating system ever. Like nobody thinks, oh, I wish I went back to the good days of stable Windows XP. That's just not something to say.
Windows XP Service Pack 1 was great.
That's very different to the situation surrounding like 10.6. You know, the final version 10.6.8 was rock solid. Like this will sound ridiculous, but if you need a computer that will work every day and will just require nothing of you to keep working every day, then OS X 10.6.8 is the answer.
The problem is that it's no longer secure, and there are things like browsers and whatnot that the only probably workable browser that is still up to date will be Firefox, and at some point Firefox will say, Mozilla will say, forget it. Let's just focus on.
Oh yeah, well yeah, and this is and you know, Sam, you're right to throw those questions there because it is, you know, I don't know, it's something that I find particularly frustrating because I'm running 10.7 now for this kind of reason, but I went to 10.7 and the reliability of the machine has just plummeted because it just does weird.
Yeah, that's
it just does weird things.
We're at 10.10 now.
Well, no, we're at 10.10, but we're only at 10.10 if you have machines that support 10.10, and then you have this question: is what do you do with perfectly good working hardware, which has no problem to it, other than everybody's end of life it software-wise?
Install Linux on it. Linux on it. You can.
I know you can, but then what?
The thing is,
I don't need it to run Linux. I need it to run Mac OS. That's what I want. I have a Linux box right now. It's absolutely rock solid.
Yeah, that doesn't solve the non-supportive software question, does it?
No, all I want is a Mac. You want a Mac box to run, to run as a Mac. That's all. That's what you want. You see. I'm sure we will argue about this more and more in the future. Sort of stuff.
What you're trying to say. Go on, Adam.
The only one thing is, if you're on 10.8, you get a free update to 10.10. I know you're on 10.7, but Apple have actually been working fairly hard to make sure that as many computers as possible can be upgraded to 10.10, 10.11 as well. 10.11 supports all of 10.10's computers. So it's just because you're on a 32-bit architecture and 10.8 went to 64-bit, and that's where the problem is. But at some point, you're going to have to customize. How old is your computer? Your computer's probably 10 years old by now.
Oh yeah,
that's a good run.
Well, of course it is, and it still works. That's the
As a little side thing, talking about this isn't to do with audio, but talking about 10 point Windows XP, and there's a link with Internet Explorer 6. I've just gone to the Internet Explorer 6 countdown, which is now hosted at I think it's a Microsoft type website, and the map is almost completely blue, light blue, which is excellent. That means that most of the world is now using more than 99% not Internet Explorer 6, and only China is behind. So there you go. A little browser update for our audio people.
Is that related to the XP thing? Because isn't it the case that I don't know. That's no audio.
There's a significant.
Let's move on. This is I'm aware of our time. We're about to deliver the entirety, all audio podcast allocated minutes for July in one go.
It's great. Now, of course, so there we go. GarageBand got an update. That's the news story.
Has Logic had an update?
No, I don't think it has.
No, it hasn't. I checked February. It's the last one.
But Logic's been okay.
Logic's been okay. Don't forget, if you enjoy the audio podcast, you can subscribe to the audio podcast for free on YouTube, iTunes, Gpod, Stitcher, and all those kind of various things as well. We're not on Spotify, though, actually, just because I couldn't be bothered to read their documents, so I haven't bothered doing that yet. There we go, that's what it is. If you want, you can subscribe to the lowest traffic mailing list on the internet, in that we are yet to send an email via it, so there you go. You could find details for doing that as well. If you want to complain about this extensive, only kind of relevant coverage, then you can feel free to do so via the email. Is probably the best one, I think, isn't it? Yeah, like show@theaudiopodcast.co.uk is the best thing. I think that's the thing we reply to the most. So other people do kind of look at the Twitter and Facebook every now and again-ish, maybe.
Now and again-ish, and I'm having a look now.
There we go. Excellent stuff. And with that done, we're heading to the Plunder. Though, we're only take 2 of the Plunder items, though by the time you come to check that out, you won't realise there was a third one. And we'll hold one back for another week. There you go. But Adam, you can choose which one you want.
That's a bit 1984. Well, I mean, I had a look at a couple of these. I thought that I don't know. I don't know which one to choose. You choose one.
In which case, definitely the John Chowning. So John Chowning gave a lecture at the Universitat Pompeu Fabra, which is awesome. Sam, you weren't so taken about it, but there is a great moment where he starts to give a example and demonstration of FM synthesis, which, from the man himself, is just, I thought was awesome. So
that's what you'd want to see. I was enjoying the beginning once Chowning got into it. It took him a few minutes to get into it, I think. And then I skipped forward to see where it was going, and I was like, am I going to sit here for an hour and watch all of those bits in between? Maybe not.
But it's fun. He has those little kind of anecdotal stories. He's like, so me and Max, that's Matthews, were just hanging out one day, and then we worked out. It has that kind of lovely moment. So
you may have told me around, but maybe he's gone to a probably. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. And then it strikes me that it's appropriate for us maybe to take the headphone item, as we did talk about Apple Music, which was the extension of the Beats streaming service. So Medium have how it's made Beats headphones.
I was going to go for the other one.
Me too. I thought there was more of a link there, but this works. It's fine.
There you go. I made the choice, which is kind of cool. It turns out that your Beats headphones have a couple of unnecessary bits of metal in them, so they actually weigh of anything, which I thought was pretty fun.
And also, it turns out that the component costs of a pair of Beats headphones is $16, and they cost $199, or that particular set of them cost $199. So there's a significant markup going on there.
Cool. Yeah. You could tell why Apple were like, yeah, that's a company for us to have. We'll go there. We'll take that. There we go. Great stuff, guys. I think we're there. Any other remarks? Have we done the subscribe? We've done all the other stuff. No, that's it. No?
Good stuff.
Good stuff. All right. In which case, that was the audio podcast, show 155, Synth Light Magic. I'm Scott Hewitt.
I'm Samuel Freeman.
And I'm Adam Yanch, and hungry. So have a great lunchtime, everyone, and we'll see you again for another audio podcast.
Bye.
Goodbye.